Good morning and a warm welcome. Holly here for 𝐊𝐴𝐴 TV. Sorry, just cutting to a break. Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
Where the property market is headed next.
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly.
Apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements
With 𝐊𝐴𝐴 TV. Good morning and a warm welcome. Holly Shields here for 𝐊𝐴𝐴 TV, reporting to you live from Sydney, and you're watching the Global Markets Roundup. Let's dive into some key highlights and happenings from yesterday, starting with the US market. Well, the benchmark US indices closed in the red yesterday after the energy and financial stocks led broad losses across sectors and China's Evergrande default fears loomed. The S&P 500 fell 1.7%, the Dow Jones 1.78%, while the Nasdaq Composite as well 2.19%, and the small cap Russell 2000 shed 2.44%. Yesterday's slide comes ahead of the Fed's two-day monthly meeting starting today, in which the top central bank officials are expected to deliberate on the latest economic data. They consider the stimulus tapering later this year. Investors also took cues from the developments in the Chinese markets, which saw a sharp retreat earlier in the day. Concerns over Evergrande Group's financial troubles weighed on investors' minds. It has reportedly sought the government's help to solve the crisis. Its total debt to banks and other stakeholders stood at a staggering $300 billion. All 11 stock segments of the S&P 500 stayed in the negative territory, with energy and financial stocks being in the bottom movers. US-listed Chinese stocks also saw a sharp decline, and shares of Alibaba Group, DD Global, and NIO all took a fall. Meanwhile, Tesla stock fell 5.16%, while Adiza Biotech stock rose 69.22%. after the company announced positive results from its Phase 2 study of a COVID drug. And in the energy space, ExxonMobil fell 3.81%, while Chevron Corp also declined 3.20%, and Royal Dutch Shell declined 3.06%. Total Energy's S&E and BNP fell around 2.5% as well. And then in the financial sector, Berkshire Hathaway dropped 1.67%, JP Chase plunged 4.45%, and Visa fell 1.89%, while the Bank of America Corp fell a staggering 4.99%. MasterCard Incorporated as well shed 1.99%. Then in the tech sector, Apple stock declined 2.98%, Microsoft 3.21%, and Nvidia Corp fell as well 4.83%. Also, ASML Holdings and Adobe Incorporated stocks ticked down by around 3% each. Now it's time for a short break, but stay tuned because I'll be right back with the UK and Australian market updates. Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
Where the property market is headed next.
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly.
Apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements
With 𝐊𝐴𝐴 TV. Welcome back. I'm Holly and you're watching the Global Markets Roundup. Well, to London now, and the London markets traded in the red zone, dragged down by mining stocks. Moreover, travel stocks surged amid media reports regarding relaxation in restrictions to be announced by Biden's administration for vaccinated travellers from the EU and the UK. Royal Dutch shares fell by about 1.48% after the company planned to produce 2 million tonnes of a low-carbon jet fuel by the year 2025. And presidential shares plunged by around 8.48% after the company had planned to raise £2 billion through a public offer and international listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, AstraZeneca's breast cancer drug 𝐿 showed positive results in a late-stage trial, as the shares surged by around 4.87%. And SSE shares went up by around 0.46% after the company responded to media speculations and confirmed that it had not yet decided regarding the split of the renewable energy business division. World stocks ended sharply lower on Monday, while safe haven assets attracted investors as a looming crisis at property group Evergrande spooked the global markets, sparking concerns ahead of a busy week of central bank meetings. Investors preferred safe haven assets, with US Treasuries gaining in price, lowering down yields and gold rising. Shares of Evergrande, which have been struggling to raise funds to pay their lenders, took a hit of 10.2%, closing at just 2.28 on Monday. Regulators have already issued a warning that its mammoth $305 billion liabilities could spark broader risks to China's entire financial system. And the ASX 200 index futures fell 1.3%, while the ASX 200 closed 2.1% lower yesterday, marking its steepest drop since the 26th of February. On Monday, the Aussie and Kiwi dollars fell for a third consecutive session against the US dollar, as concerns about China's economy weighed on risk sentiment and commodity prices. The Australian dollar took a hit of 0.44%, having touched 3-to-1 to 2-week lows, continuing its downward trend from the September peak. And in the crypto world, Bitcoin tumbled as much as 10% in Monday's session as investors were trying to steer clear of risky assets. BTC is currently trading at 7.6% down at just over $43,600 as of 7:35 a.m. And gold notched higher on Monday, as well as concerns about the solvency of Chinese property group Evergrande forced investors to move to the safe haven assets. Although gains were capped by strength in the US dollar ahead of the Fed's policy meeting. Spot gold rose 0.5%, while US gold futures settled 0.8% higher at just over $1,765 an ounce. Looking at the uptick in gold prices, Australian gold miners like Newcrest Mining and St Barbara, plus Northern Star, could remain flat to positive during today's expected sell-off in the broader Australian market, as copper prices on Monday fell sharply, lower to one-month lows as looming concerns over a debt default at the Evergrande Group fueled a sell-off across financial markets, especially in the materials used in construction. And benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange had fallen 3.2%. Prices of the metal used widely in the construction industry earlier touched a low of just over $9,000 a ton, the lowest since the 20th of August. Local miners like BHP, Fortescue and Rio Tinto could see a gap down in the opening of today's session. Plus, crude oil prices traded 2% lower on Monday as investors grew more risk-averse. Switching to the US dollar as a safe haven asset made crude oil more expensive to hold in other currencies. Brent crude fell 1.9% after touching the session's low of just over $73.50 US. Meanwhile, US West Texas Intermediate ended 2.3% lower as well at just over $70 US a barrel. Meanwhile, Australian energy players like Viva Energy, Santos and Woodside Petroleum could all be falling in today's session. Well, that is all for now in the Global Markets Roundup, but keep watching 𝐊𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐞 TV for more live market updates. Holly Shields signing off.